Like I said, welcome to West Brewing, Benstown Hall. It's the District 54 debate for the two candidates for the state representative. Jamie Crispin, who is the Director of Leadership Bend and Community Affairs for the Bend Chamber, will be one of the moderators tonight. I'm Michael Alon, Chairman-elect of the Bend Chamber. So thanks again for coming, and I'll hand it over to Jamie.
All right, thank you, sir. Thank you, Michael. Thank you, all of you, for being here tonight. This is going to be one of first modified presidential debates that we'll be holding. As many of you know, we held the first very contentious race with the Deschutes County DA's opponents. Tonight, joining us, as you know, we have Craig Wilhelm, representing the Democratic Party, and also an experienced gentleman himself, and Dr. Knute Buehler, representing the Republican Party, and he too, as you recognize, is having run for candidacy before, but neither for this office. Just a couple of quick reminders. Next month, I feel a little hot in the mic, David. Is it okay? I think we're all probably hot. There we go. Does that work? Okay, thank you. Next month, mark your calendars. Join us Tuesday evening, September 2nd. We'll put on this same style modified presidential debate for Deschutes County Commissioner position number 1, Board of Commissioners position number 1, with incumbent Deschutes County Commissioner Tony DeBone and his opponent, Bend City Councilor Jody Barham. So be sure you join us and get your tickets now, because it's going to be the day after Labor Day. It will be packed in here, so be sure you get on that. Just a real quick announcement. If I could, by both a shout out and a show of hands, how many awesome, esteemed Leadership Bend alumni are in the room right now? Woohoo, right? A number of you. Well, hey, the class of 2015 is registering now, and the application deadline is next Friday. It's coming quickly, so we have a wonderful year, and we hope you get in there. Let me tell you a little bit about the agenda this evening. Both candidates will have an opportunity to open up with 2 minutes for comments from each one of them. We'll then move into the modified portion of the debate. Kelly Blyer from News Talk 1110 KBND, one of our moderators, will start us off here tonight, followed up by Aaron Schweitzer, the publisher from The Source Weekly and Lay It Out Events owner, and of course myself, Jamie Crispin, Government Affairs Leadership Bend Director, giving each one of the candidates an equal question that they can both answer. They have 90 seconds to answer it. It's being timed up here by lovely Bonnie and Kathleen. And of course, after we get through 12 questions, unless we run out of time, we'll have an opportunity before then for the two of you to ask a question, one of the other. You'll have the standard 90 seconds to answer, but then the candidate who asks the questions, if you need to, you have 60 seconds for a rebuttal. And then of course, we'll part with 2 more minutes of closing comments. If at that time you still have questions and there's time left over, we'll consider how that might work in the room. But for the most part, a modified presidential debate means the moderators take that time with each of the candidates to vet out the issues before you. We hope you've had an opportunity to network beforehand and also afterwards if you'd like to follow up on your questions. So let's get ready to begin. Gentlemen, Dr. Knute Buehler, you won the coin toss, was my understanding. So you start with opening comments, which that also means that Craig, you close with closing comments. So, Dr. Buehler, please begin. You've got 2 minutes.
Thank you, Jamie. Can everyone hear me in the back room? Test, test, test. Good, good. Okay, great. My name is Dr. Knute Buehler, and I'm a doctor, not a politician. I think for anyone who has seen me as a medical professional, and I see a few of you in the audience who fit that description, you know, I never ask when you come to see me if you're Republican, Democrat, Independent, or none of the above. You know, it just doesn't matter. It just doesn't matter. What does matter is hearing your concerns, gathering the necessary data, and then getting busy fixing your problems. And that's exactly the same approach I'll use as your state representative. You know, I don't fit narrow labels, unfortunately, that define so much of our politics today. You know, towing the party line has become all too common instead of thinking independently. I suspect those narrow labels also don't fit most of you here in this room. But you know what? I think that is the big strength, advantage, and quite frankly, the big difference in this race. And I think this is why, one of the big reasons why 27 local former and current elected officials have endorsed my campaign over the last few days. Now, Oregon and Bend are facing some serious challenges. Our economy is improving, but it's not providing enough of the good jobs that can really support a family. Our schools in Bend are good, but they need to be so much better, because right now, they're not adequately preparing our kids for a 21st century economy. And really strengthening our economy and improving our schools go hand in hand. So as your representative, my top priorities will be these two. I hope to explore these topics more and answer your questions. Thank you very much for coming tonight, and thank you very much for having me. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Buehler. Mr. Wilhelm.
All right, thank you. Thank you all for coming tonight. Thank you to the Chamber, and thank you to our sponsors. My name is Craig Wilhelm, and let me tell you a little bit about myself and why I am running. I've served my country and my community my entire adult life. Ever since I was 13 years old, I had a dream of going to West Point. And through a good public education, I made that dream a reality, and I graduated from West Point in 1993. And it was from there that I embarked on a incredible Army career where I rose up the ranks and served in a variety of leadership positions in the Pentagon, as well as in being selected to command the largest Chinook helicopter unit in the United States Army in both Iraq and Afghanistan. And it was there that I commanded 200 men and women in combat. And it was the most challenging but rewarding time of my life, looking after them, making sure they were cared for, making our mission, and also making sure that their families were taken care of back home. After almost 14 years in the military, I decided to hang up my combat boots and my helmet, and I went to work on a new career. And I started working for a company in business development and became part owner of a small metals recycling company. And that's how I moved to Bend. And like many of you here, I chose Bend because it's an incredible place to live. But now as I'm walking the community, and I'm sure all of you know it, I've seen many of you from the times that I've been walking there, walked over 5,000 homes. What I'm seeing is a Bend that is struggling, a Bend that has challenges. I hear from folks that say I'm having problems keeping my job, or I'm having problems paying for my house. Or when I go into a classroom, I see class sizes that are way too big in schools that are underfunded. Those are the reasons why I'm running. I care deeply about this community, and I look forward to talking more about the issues today and answering questions. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Wilhelm. We'll go into the question portion, which Kelly Beyer will start us off. But Dr. Buehler, you'll be the first to answer, and you have 90 seconds, and at which time, Craig, whether you need the question repeated is up to you, but you'll have 90 seconds.
The first question. Many politicians have argued that a doctor is the best public official to fix what's ailing healthcare. But Governor Kitzhaber is a doctor, and our Cover Oregon problems show the fix is much more complicated than being an MD. What would you bring to the continuing Cover Oregon challenges as a lawmaker?
Kelly, I think we currently have a real mess with regards to healthcare reform, but we need to fix it. And I think we have clearly had a doctor as governor the last 12 years, but what we haven't had is a doctor in the Oregon House of Representatives to provide that balance. And I think right now, bringing my 22 years of practical healthcare experience would be a big advantage. Cover Oregon certainly needs to be fixed, but more importantly, what we haven't seen is the challenges that the CCOs will. It's still uncertain if that will be a successful model. I think for the good of Oregon and for the good of all of us who've gone on those healthcare services, it has to work. I think having someone like me in the Oregon House of Representatives providing that insider knowledge of healthcare in this state would be a big advantage.
Would you like to go ahead, or would you like it repeated?
No, I got the question.
Okay.
Look, Cover Oregon was a debacle. It's embarrassing and it should be embarrassing to you as Oregonians to see what happened and how the rollout happened. As an Army officer and somebody that takes accountability and responsibility seriously, that made me mad. And it should make all of you mad. What I am happy about, though, or encouraged about, is that from this time forward with the healthcare, we have folks like you, that are covered for the first time that had pre-existing conditions. That can only be good. I look at my brother who has type 1 diabetes. He can be covered for the first time as an adult. That is a great thing for our community. It's a great thing for Oregon. And what we have to focus on now is we have to focus as a legislator, we have to focus on providing quality care, providing accountability, quite frankly, and we need to look at bringing costs down and affordability. That's what I'll be focused on.
Thank you. Thank you. The next question, Aaron Schweitzer from The Source.
Craig, I think you start this one. Now that the Central Oregon economic engine is beginning to pick up steam, what do you feel are some of the lessons the community learned from its last phase of economic success that you as a legislator would use to help guide Benton's growth?
Well, thank you for the question. As a small business owner and knowledgeable about business, I think we need to do more. Yes, it looks like there's some signs in our economy that are turning around. There's still a lot that needs to be done. First things first, we need to diversify our economy. We can't rely on just the service industry and tourism for our economy. We have great folks, a lot of them in this room, that are bringing innovative approaches to business. And I think that's incredible, and that's what I want to continue as a legislature, to work with folks like that. First thing, for small businesses, they need access to capital. They still do. And I'd be working real hard to make sure that that happens. Second thing is we need to reduce the red tape. I mean, it is embarrassing to me as a small business owner, the red tape that happens. I was walking in the community just a couple weeks ago and met a couple, Sarah and Brandon. They're arborists, and they own a tree service. And they were telling me how their company lost their company's name for a time because of paperwork. And that's that kind of the transparency and accountability in government that I'd work to fix, to make sure that we don't have small businesses that are struggling. They don't need to have that. They don't have the time to worry about paperwork and red tape.
Knute?
Aaron, I think you asked a key question. And I think Ben, Central Oregon, has a great opportunity to really lead the way in this recovery. You know, Ben increasingly is seen as an entrepreneurial center on the same level of places like Austin and Seattle. And I think we can see what's happened here with regards to the motivation, the support, the access to new sources of startup capital through the Ben Venture Fund. I think those kinds of things can provide a great model for the rest of Oregon, and Ben really should lead the way so that this region and the state is an economic powerhouse and sustainable economy. And I think our craft brewing industry here in Central Oregon is a great example how that comes about. You get a key group of people with expertise, they develop some great products, market it, we combine it with our tourism industry to get exposure, and all of a sudden now we're employing nearly 1,000 people in this region. That's the kind of things that Ben can be the lead in really creating an entrepreneurial Oregon.
All right. We're using the new Benton well over here. Thank you very much. So moving ahead here, no matter which one of you is elected, You will be new to a state legislative position. How do you plan to leverage this and work across the aisle with both Democrats and Republicans? This is a part 2 question. And who do you think is going to be in leadership in the 2015 legislature, and how do you plan to develop positive relationships with them? And so this is for you, Craig, to start.
Is it me?
Didn't you? I'm sorry, was it Knute?
Yeah, you're going back.
You're right, it's back to
If you're
Knute.
going back and forth.
We are, and I have a K right by your question, my apologies.
Yeah. Jamie, you know, leadership is more than just about position. It's also having good ideas, being able to build relationships with people, no matter if you're the minor party or the major party. I've been able to do that all my life. I think a great example of that is the fact that I have a number of former Democratic elected officials that have endorsed my campaign. The former Democratic Deschutes County chairperson has endorsed my campaign. I think those are kinds of things which show my ability to reach across and bring people together. And I also think that leadership and getting things done is not simply about what you do in the legislature. It's also about being that person who connect, can align, and can set priorities in the community. And we've already started to do that with such things as bringing more health care benefits to veterans here. And that was simply, I didn't have an official office, but just listening to the concerns of veterans, understanding the programs that already exist, and then just exerting pressure through a number of different avenues. That's what real leadership is. It's not necessarily being in the legislature and having that seat up at a specific committee.
Craig?
Well, as I said, I've been serving my country and communities my entire life. I think a leader has to talk or walk the walk and not talk the talk. I never asked my soldiers when I led them, I never asked them to do anything that I wouldn't do myself. That's how I lead. I lead from the front. And as a commanding officer, that's what I did every day, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, in combat, in the toughest of times. And I asked my men and women to follow me. I'm going to take that same approach to leadership here in Salem for our community. I need you to follow me. I need you to help me out. So I'll be coming into your neighborhoods and asking you questions. How can I legislate better than that? Is to make sure that I am legislating with you in mind, day in and day out, and taking care of you. That's how I did it in the military. That's how I intend to do it in the legislature.
All right, this next question, we'll start with Craig, is land use issues in the state offer a lot of challenges. As a legislator, how would you put pressure on the executive branch to encourage the Oregon Department of Land Conservation and Development and the local units of economic development to work together? And are there any specific land use regulations you believe need to be changed?
Well, I think the biggest thing in the legislature that we can do is make sure there's a streamlined process and a balanced process, both for land use approvals, but also a balanced approach to looking at economic development within a UGB, let's say. So I'll be looking at all that. I mean, look, the state has a land use law, a state land use law, one of the few in the country. So yeah, I think it's important to make sure that our local communities can get their approvals in that land use system, and we shouldn't be burdening them with that. At the same time, the reason why we have land use laws in the first place is because Oregon is a great place to live. We have beautiful natural resources. We have beautiful, clean running water. That's why people come here for economic reasons. That's why people come here for tourism. And we need to preserve that. So we need a balanced approach to that. And yes, there's not a one-size-fits-all approach to land use, but I think that we need to be very smart in the way that we grow, and we need to be very careful, especially in our area here, because the reasons why we came here is because of the natural beauty. And we can make it an economic issue, and we can make it a natural beauty issue.
As we all feel the pressure of growth in Bend and Oregon, this question is becoming more and more key. I think we all want smart growth. We have to be very careful that we don't want Bend to become an Aspen, or we don't want Bend to become Boise, where we have uncontrolled growth. And that's the careful balance that we have to undergo. If we go too far either way, we start to have adverse secondary effects. The big thing right now that I see out walking neighborhoods and hear from people all around the state, or all around the city rather, is the difficulty with affordable housing. And I think when we have a mismatch between supply and demand, those are kind of problems that start to develop. So I think we need to find solutions to those in a smart, sustainable way so that we preserve the natural beauty of Bend and Central Oregon.
Okay, Knute, this question is for you. If OSU Cascades were beginning to look as if it were going to lose its state funding due to delays in site development, would you help? And if so, how? If not, why?
I think OSU Cascades is crucial to the future of Central Oregon. And having been on the OSU advisory board at its birth, I have a good feeling for what that means exactly. I would not allow that to happen. We have to have OSU Cascades for the quality of life and for a healthy economy here in Bend. So I think that's not just my responsibility, but that's the entire community mobilizing to protect that important community asset that is so essential to the future of the region.
Well, I think definitely. I think we need higher education and a four-year college here. That's crucial to our economic development, right? I think when I'm knocking on doors, and I've knocked on a lot, is folks are concerned about the rollout of that. But I think we all would agree that having a four-year college here is the right thing. And is in the best interest of our quality of life and in the best interest of our growth. It's going to be great for bringing in jobs. It's going to be great for small business, and I think we need to push forward with that.
Thank you, gentlemen. Moving back a little bit to the topic that Aaron had brought up regarding land use, that is the most important thing going on, one of the most important things going on right here. And Craig, I know this starts with you. What immediate efforts do you plan to take or support to address the issue of affordable housing in Bend, especially within your own district if elected?
Oh my gosh, that's a great question. When I'm knocking on doors, that's the biggest issue. We have a housing situation, and I think all of you would agree. We have the lowest occupancy rates, lowest vacancy rates. And it's those bright lights. Lowest vacancy rates, and rents are going up, and it's pushing people out of this community. I'm concerned about that. We should all be concerned about that. Steps to fix it. A lot of that is for the city, but we can pave the way with some help there in the legislature. It all ties to that streamlined growth that I'm talking about. I mean, streamlined ability to get things passed through on the land use issues, and I'm certainly for that. I think the other thing too is that, and I heard great stories about trying to make sure that we use the land that we have here in the city, and that's going to be important as we go forward.
I mean, this is an issue that I think the city is going to have to take the lead on. And I'm very interested to see how the City of Bend Affordable Housing Committee report plays out that's due in August. And I think we all need to study that report because a lot of people have been putting a lot of time and effort into looking at it. We all need as a community to look at it, think deeply about it, and then make a plan that will create smart growth in Bend so that again we have this careful balance. We don't want to become an Aspen, nor do we want to become a Boise. We want to preserve the beauty of this region. We're at a key juncture in Bend. We're at a key juncture where we're feeling incredible pressure, but we also have to preserve what made this a great region and attracted so many people in the first place. This is once in a generation time to get it right. So we all need to pay careful attention.
All right, Knute, this is for you. What budget challenges do you anticipate if elected, and how do you plan to handle them? Specifically, what would be your priorities?
Well, the priorities, like I said in my opening speech, is certainly jobs, the economy, and high-quality schools. That is clear. But I think the budget is also predicated on having good government. Good government is not a partisan issue. We all want to have good government, and I think we all feel that there needs to be more accountability at Oregon state government level. We see Cover Oregon. We see the waste of the Columbia River crossing. We see the problems in DHS, which has another failed software conversion. Those are the types of things we need to focus. We need to have a laser focus on establishing accountability and eliminate the waste that we see in so many programs at the Oregon State.
For me.
Oh,
yeah.
go ahead.
It is kind of daunting.
Oh, yeah,
Pushing around.
multitasking.
No problem. We certainly said it in our opening for sure, but let me reiterate. My biggest priority, jobs in the economy here in Bend. It is no doubt the number one issue when I'm knocking on doors and talking with folks is making sure that we diversify our economy here, make sure that we cut the red tape for small businesses to grow and succeed. And also, we need to look at some innovative incentives for small businesses to succeed, quite frankly. I'd love to see some of these incentives on access to capital. I'd love to see some incentives on export assistance. Those are the types of things that are going to help small businesses here. I know because I'm a small business owner. Second thing is education. I have visited schools. Again, you heard my mantra. When I don't ask folks to do anything I wouldn't do, I called up schools. I went into the classroom. I shadowed teachers and educators. Okay? And the thing that I saw, Pine Ridge Elementary School, Title I second grade school, I saw 36 students in the classroom, one teacher, incredible, talented teacher, Emily DePrano. Hopefully she's okay with me saying that. She did it with such grace, I couldn't have done it. I was brought down and broken down into a group of 4 to teach reading comprehension. And I had a difficult time. Those are the great teachers. We need to resource them for success and resource students for success. So those are my priorities. And then I have a passion project myself, and that is to take care of our soldiers as they're returning home.
Craig, this is for you. What can Oregon's legislature learn from Colorado and Washington about the legalization of marijuana? And how would you lead on this issue?
I knew that was going to come up.
It's on the ballot.
Yes, it is. First off, I'm gonna digress a bit. Education needs funding. What better way to have a stable funding stream than marijuana? So that's the first if it's going to be on the ballot and if voters decide, that's where I'd like the money to go. So that's the first thing. Second thing is that I am concerned about the way that it will be written, and that is if it's going to pass, let's help small businesses, right? So I'd be looking at making sure that is a small business type of operation, and that the money's flowing to education and direct funding. And so that would be the things that I'd look at. So hopefully that answers your question.
Darren, I always think that a better way to control something is to tax and regulate than to criminalize it. And I think we have a wonderful opportunity here with marijuana to change the paradigm. But I think we need to be careful and deliberate about it. We have a great experiment going on, fortunately, in other states, Washington, California, and Colorado. Let's see how they do, let's learn from them, and then reevaluate after a few years. I grew up in Douglas County, which happens to be one of the best marijuana growing regions in North America. So I am a little concerned at the impact in a lot of communities in Oregon if we fully legalize without doing our due diligence, without doing our homework and setting up the right regulatory environment.
All right, we'll start again with you, Knute. I'll just put it out there. We know it's made it as one of the ballot measures. The top two open primary, the ability for us to vote in the open primary. Are you for or against this? Why and how does this serve us or not?
Well, this is something I've been for 8 years. I was one of the first people to step up when the concept came forward, and went to Phil Kiesling, was involved in the previous two efforts at the open primary. And I think it's really an issue of fairness and competition. It's fairness because right now nearly 30% of Oregonians who are registered as independent or non-affiliated can't participate and have adequate access to our primary ballot. That needs to change. And it's an issue of competition because right now we have so many primary contests that there is no active race going on because you don't have two viable candidates. Right now, in this election in November, there's 75 legislative races. It's estimated that only 7 will actually be competitive. That's not a healthy democracy, and the top two primary would change that dynamic completely.
So, I am excited about this proposal on the ballot, but we all should remember in 2008 that the voters struck the same thing down by 30% votes. So, look, I'm all about access and opening the political process. I think that's why we're here. Right, is to make sure that people are part of this process, and particularly for non-affiliated voters, you know, those that are disenfranchised with the political system, I want them to be involved. So I like that. The one thing that I'm worried about in that proposal, though, there's two things actually. The first thing is that I'm worried about it expanding the time for the primary campaigns. And as you know, if you expand the time for primary campaigns, you're injecting more money into the political system, and that's what we don't want. We don't need more money in the political system. The second thing is it creates a two-ballot system. And what I mean by that is that we will have to have a different system for the presidential campaign. And I think that could potentially confuse voters. It could potentially disenfranchise the people that we're trying to give access to. So I'm excited about seeing what it looks like in the end in November, and if it expands access, that's great.
Testing. Okay, now it's working. This question starts with you. Do you feel that Bend has adequate social services to face the real issues of mental health in our community? And if not, what would you do to change that?
Short answer is no. We have great healthcare professionals here in the city of Bend and Deschutes County. I've been meeting with a lot of them because one of my passion projects, as you know, I'm a combat veteran. I've seen firsthand veterans coming home and trying to reintegrate into our society and having difficult times with PTSD, traumatic brain injuries, and other mental problems. I think we need to break down the stigma of mental health. I think that will be important in getting funding, the right funding for it. And I think it's only good for our community that folks understand that it's not a stigma anymore, and that it should never have been. And so that's what I would be focused on, is making sure that we work with these incredible, passionate healthcare professionals in the community.
Well, I'd like, from those of us who haven't served, Craig, I'd like to thank you for your service. I think we all greatly appreciate that, and certainly you've seen firsthand the effects of combat. But in this country, how we handle mental illness is an embarrassment. And Oregon is one of the worst of all the states. And that's based on the Department of Justice recent look at our mental health care system. It's clearly a system which is coming off the hinges. When we look at healthcare transformation, one of the big components is integrating mental health care with physical health care. We have to give that right. The CCO model, which we bet so much on in our healthcare transformation in this state, is dependent on that integration occurring. There's a lot of innovative things being done, especially right here in Central Oregon, in embedding mental health care professionals along with typical physical medicine. I think that's a model that has a lot of potential, but it also has to be sold at the state level, and we have to get adequate funding for it.
Knute, this question is for you. The Oregon Student Opportunity Fund is a college scholarship fund being proposed to assist low and middle income Oregon students. It is not without its budgetary implications. Do you support the initiative? If so, why? Please explain.
Aaron, affordable higher education is an essential thing we have to get right. But the current proposal puts the state at real budgetary risk by primarily taking all of our bonding capacity. And essentially, that concept is you borrow at a low rate and you invest, hoping that you're going to make more than what you borrowed the money. That's risky. That's called arbitrage. Lots of people get into trouble doing that sort of thing. To bet the future of the state's bonding capacity on that kind of high-risk endeavor, I have some serious concerns about. Especially if you borrow now and invest at the height of the market, there's no guarantee you're going to make money. You could lose money. So that would be a double jeopardy. You use up your bonding capacity and actually you don't have a fund to provide tuition support. You actually have lost money. I'd rather see us develop a private nonprofit fund raising money from the community and the state, similar to what they've done with the Knute Cancer Center Challenge. I think that's much more safe and responsible way to have tuition support.
I think that having affordable higher education is important as well. I also think that finding sustainable revenue sources is important as well. And look, we talk about let's fund education all the way through. We always talk about funding education. We never talk about how we can do that. And so we got to come up with creative solutions. Here's one that I think would be an interesting one to consider. There's a House bill, 4341, that was introduced in the House this last session. It's called the Class Action Lawsuit Bill. It passed in the House, failed in the Senate, but the concept is this. Settlements from class action lawsuits, about 80% of them do not get claimed. So all that unclaimed money, and it's in the billions of dollars, go back to the perpetrators that committed that in the first place. What better funding stream to education? As long as it's sustainable, which they're saying it is, let's push that money directly to education. That will help bring our tuitions down. That will help reducing the size of the classroom by hiring more teachers. That's what I'll be focused on, is finding those solutions.
Another item that has hit the ballot measure for November, driver ID cards. This creates an Oregon resident driver card without requiring proof of legal presence in the United States. Are you for or against this, and why?
Well, first and foremost, it's going to be on the ballot, so voters are going to decide, which is a good thing. I personally think it's poorly written. I think the intent was for it to keep our citizens safe on the road. I don't think it really accomplishes what it was intended for, in my opinion. So let's see what the voters decide.
Clearly, Jamie, this will be decided by Oregon voters, and we will have to respect that decision. But it's really a more national issue. And I have great concerns about us doing these one-off piecemeal immigration reforms just because we have such stasis at the national level. But this is a problem that needs to be fixed. My grandparents were immigrants to this country, so I have a lot of sensitivity to the needs and the challenges, and also the energy and the vibrancy that this country experiences by allowing immigrants to come in. But first we have to secure our borders, and we have to get it right in terms of people coming in a responsible way.
Thank you both. For the most part, if you could give us just 30 seconds to confer in our moderation here slightly, please. Okay.
Thank you.
Golly. So, gentlemen, we have concurred. There is enough time that we will go ahead and move on to the candidate question portion. With that in mind, again, Knute, you won the coin toss, which means you must have elected to go first, and in this portion you also go first. You get to ask a question to Mr. Wilhelm. He gets 90 seconds to answer, and if you so choose, you have 60 seconds for a rebuttal.
Great, thank you. I'm a big fan of vote by mail. It increases turnout because it makes it easier for people to vote. It gives everyone 2 weeks to study the issues and then cast your ballot. So Craig, given the convenience of vote by mail, I'd like to know why you failed to vote in 38% of the local elections from 2008 to 2013, when there were really important issues on the ballot, such as funding of our local schools, public safety, and support of CLCC. I think if you wanted to be our voice and vote in Salem, you first need to show up for important elections in Bend.
I think that's just dead wrong. And I think if you go back and you take a look, I have voted. There were times that I missed. I was out of the country. No excuse. I take full responsibility for that. In my business, I traveled quite extensively in areas that didn't have a mailbox, so I should have planned better.
Do you need a rebuttal for this, Dr. Buehler? Or
Well, I do know a little bit about the Secretary of State's office, and I think the data is pretty accurate since 2006. And I think caring enough to vote in our local elections is about being in touch and aware of those important issues impacting our city. I believe if you want to be our vote in Salem, you really have to care enough to vote about those issues in Bend.
Thank you. I care deeply about the issues. That's why I'm running. Like I said, I served my country. I served it with distinction and honor. I serve my community every day. I have a nonprofit organization that serves soldiers that I lost in combat and their families of the soldiers that I lost in combat. I understand the issue.
All right, Mr. Wilhelm, it's your opportunity to ask a question of Dr. Buehler.
So, Knute, as I'm walking the district and I go to neighborhoods, the number one question that is asked of me about my opponent is he going to be leaving this community and this job in 2 years? We all know that you ran for Secretary of State. We know that you have aspirations to be governor. So what do you tell those voters that are asking me that question on the doors, saying, he's just going to leave in 2 years?
Yeah, I have no aspirations other than solving the problems that face Oregon. And that doesn't matter if I'm a physician or state representative or seeking some other office. The office is not important to me. It's solving problems. And the nice thing about being a physician and someone who is representing this city is I can solve problems at the individual level and also at the community level. So I continue to plan to be a physician, working as much as I can. I continue to do so right now. Certainly I'll have to decrease my office hours during the legislature, but I plan to be there. And that's the beauty of actually in this position, since it's a part-time position, I can continue caring for individuals.
Craig, did you have anything you'd like to respond to
No.
on that? All right. Gentlemen, then, this is the portion where you get an opportunity to share with us a good full 2 minutes of their closing comments. And that means, Knute, Dr. Buehler, you
I
start.
get to go first again.
You do.
Well, I'd like to thank the Chamber and Craig for hosting and participating in the forum. I think it's very enlightening and hopefully helpful to you here. And if you trust me with your vote, and I hope you certainly will, I'd like you to know what I bring to this position, what kind of representative I'll be in my approach to the job. You know, Oregon is in my blood. I grew up in Roseburg, went to Oregon State. My wife Patty and I chose to return to Oregon over 20 years ago to raise our children, start our careers, and build our businesses. And secondly, you know, I'm a fixer, not a partisan fighter. If you're looking for a noisemaker to go to Salem and raise hell, that's just not who I am. And finally, after 12 years of having a doctor as governor, I think it's about time that we have a doctor in the house. We don't have a physician, nurse, or healthcare executive, anyone who knows healthcare in the entire Oregon House of Representatives. Given all the healthcare problems that's facing this state, I think my 22 years of practical healthcare experience will make a big difference. You know, I'll work hard and study the issues. That's something I've done all my life. I'll be accessible and listen, no matter if that means holding town forums, touring schools, or just sitting down having beers with people who care. I'll be open-minded and respectful of other people's point of view, no matter if they voted for me or not. And I'll always put the interest of Ben and Oregon over party politics. Now, I'm certain you won't agree with every vote I cast, but you can be assured that I'll always listen to both sides. I'll make decisions based on the facts, and always with the public interest as my top priority. I ask for your vote in November. Thank you very much for having me. Thank you for coming this evening.
We live in an incredible community. I think all of us would agree that we have one of the most beautiful backdrops in our community ever. We have the best mountains, we have the best clean rivers and streams, we have the best lakes. We have a great place to recreate in, a great place to plant roots in, and we have a great place to raise a family in. That's why I chose that. But I will tell you that we do have a bend that is struggling and is facing challenges. We have a bend that is facing challenges with housing. We have a bend that's facing challenges with the economy and creating good paying jobs. We have a Bend that is struggling with small businesses being able to succeed here. That is the reason why I jumped in the race. I was feeling like I was on the sidelines, not putting my effort into it, not putting my leadership experience into it. Look, I led in combat through the toughest of times. I know what it takes with limited resources and with competing missions to bring folks together for the common good. I had 200 soldiers under me. I took care of them every day, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, in the thickest of fighting. I can do that here. I'll take care of you. I promise you that. I'm running because I think that if we have if Bend has a leader that stands up and says, the buck stops here, I take responsibility. I did that every day in the Army. I do that in business. I take responsibility for the success of my business. That's the type of leader we need in Salem. We need to push back on folks in Salem and say, hey, that doesn't work in Central Oregon. That's the type of leader I am. We need to push back. And I promise you that I will be that leader I'm in Salem, and I'm emphatic in making sure that we move Bend forward, we move our community forward, and I need your help to do that. Thank you so much. I'd love to have your vote in November. There's going to be plenty of opportunities to talk with us. My phone number is on my website. Call anytime. I'm here to listen to you. It's my passion, and I will follow you to any place in our community and talk with you and talk about the issues. Thank you very much for coming today. Thank you to all of our sponsors. Thank you to the chamber.
Craig Wilhelm and Dr. Knute Buehler, a big thank you to our candidates here today. Big round of applause for both these gentlemen standing up here and getting this started. I'd like to thank, of course, my partners in crime and cohorts here, Aaron Schweitzer from The Source Weekly, Kelly Blyer from News Talk 1110, KBNZ, and the Ben Chambers Community Affairs Council for helping to put this on, and of course, all of you for being here tonight. Stay in tune, stay informed, and be sure you vote. And vote first, Bonnie reminds me, if you would be so kind, is to pull out the survey and send us some feedback. And give us some ideas for future topics as well. This leaves us a little bit of additional time for you to network and talk with the candidates and one another. Have a great rest of your evening.